everyone, day 18, and yes, it's Desiree with the 2021 Christmas series. Today I'm featuring Penny Black. I love this image. The swirl is just very dainty and can really pack a big punch for a card. This is called Poinsettia Swirl, and I'll be also using their die, sentiment die, called Very Merry. So again, this is going to be a 6x6 card. The cardstock that I'm using again is my Canson XL Bristol Smooth because I'm going to be using my watercolor pencils by Faber Castell. They're called Gold Faber Aquas. I'm going to stamp this using my Simon Says Intense Black because I want a soft black. I love the fact that I'm running out of ink on this, so it's just an extremely soft black. It's like a charcoal gray, and I like that softness. It's not so bold. Don't want a dark. I haven't found that perfect gray yet. When it comes to watercolor pencils, so watercolor pencils, close to color pencils, they are, but they're not. As weird as that sounds. So when I work with watercolor pencils, this also includes the Inktense pencils by Derwent because they're not watercolor pencils. That's actually ink in that pencil, and but they can be used as you would a watercolor pencil. Yes, somebody has corrected me on that, but it's true. So when it comes to this, when I have an image, I color the entire image first. I don't go back and forth with adding water. You can also see that when I color in an image, I don't color it in entirely. So if you look at the holly, I'm down at the base with the color. Watercolor pencils are very pigmented. You don't need a lot. Now the Inktense are even more, so you could apply less. So again, they can operate the same, but again, they're different because the Inktense, when they dry, it's permanent. These could be reactivated because they're watercolor. But you can see I'm only adding drops of pigment into this. I do find, now I've used watercolor pencils on both watercolor cardstock, which they work, but I do find I get better results on Bristol Smooth or Vellum cardstock, and I use the Canson XL. It's just a better surface sometimes. You can see for the poinsettia, I added a dark to the base and I added another red to the top, and I'm blending those two together. I'm going in the dark. I have a piece of paper towel next to me. So when I go into the dark and move that, I'm wiping it off and then going into that second color to blend those two together. I want to see both of those colors. You can see that I'm activating the pigment. I'm going to the paper towel to get off the rest of my pigment, and then I'm dragging it to the top. I want that highlight to show. I don't want it to be the solid color. So that's how I get that highlight, by using that paper towel. Every once in a while, I will reactivate my water brush to get more water flow to it, because eventually they stop. I don't know. You can also use a brush and water, and you can have more control over that as well. I added 2 different colors to the leaves of the poinsettia. And again, doing that same thing. When I go into that dark pigment and get that activated with water, I then brush off on my paper towel and then go into the light. For the pine needles, I'm just doing a flicking motion. I'm not looking to stay directly into that area. I want that to cover and just give the color to those pine needles, and I'm fine if it extends off of that. I am also not one, you can add color on top of this, but you want to make sure that it is completely dry. Okay, I also like to use the water brush to the tip of the watercolor pencils to add more color as well. I'll use that if the image is still wet and I want it to bleed. I didn't want that to happen here. So what I did was, once it was dry, I went in with the darker color, and you can still see those flecking motions that I did, and that was the look that I was going for. Once that was dry, I set that aside, and I'm going to work on the sentiment. I love the sentiment. Very merry. It's right up there with Merry Everything, or just something like that. We want to include everything and have a good time. So I cut 2 with white cardstock, and then I cut the third one out of a gold mirror cardstock. Since this size of the sentiment is a nice size, I did use some of my scrap white cardstock to build this up, to make it like a chipboard piece and give it some dimension. I'll take that final layer and put that on top, and then just layer that by pinching it and making sure everything is lined up. Once that's together, we're going to start creating our layers. I'm going to set that sentiment on an angle across the bottom because I don't want to cover up my poinsettia. I'm going to add some double-sided tape to each of the sides of this base, and once I remove the release paper, this is going to be set onto a piece of gold foil cardstock. I did cut out the center, and then I will add my liquid adhesive, and that is going to be set onto a 6x6 green cardstock. I keep that base, that first base, as a solid because, again, I did add some water to that panel, and I just want to make sure that it stays flat. I'm going to adhere this to my 6x6 card base, and again, these are by Tonic. They come in both white and ivory, and I stock up when they have a great sale, and they always have great sales on these. You can't beat it. I'm going to take that sentiment and have that go on an angle along the bottom, and I'm going to add some gold gems by Pretty Pink Posh, and they are called metallic gold. We're going to add one in the center, and then we're going to add some to the center of the poinsettia. And that is our card for day 18. Again, featuring Penny Black. I do love their images, the way that they're designed and the way that they look. So day 19, right around the corner, and as always, I do hope you enjoyed some of the ideas and inspiration that I gave for you in today's card. Hope I gave you some tips and tricks when it comes to watercolor pencils, just in case they've been sitting in your stash collecting that dust. Let's get them out, brush them off. All the products that I used will be listed down below as long as they're available. Again, let's dig into our stash, take these techniques that we've seen and apply it to what we already have. If you have any questions or comments, please make sure you leave those down below, and I will make sure I get back to you as soon as I can. Enjoy this time. We are fast approaching 7 more days, and it'll be Christmas Day. Hope everyone's enjoying this time and getting ready to spend this time with the family and friends. But remember what's most important to me. Always be creative each and every day, and I'll talk to you in day 19.